Hello and welcome to another IELTS lesson. In today's lesson, we are looking at types of Task 2 questions. There are about 5 general categorization of IELTS questions that you're likely to encounter before you take the test. So on the day of the test, you're going to have one of the 5 we are about to discuss. These 5 are opinion, discussion, problem and solution, 2 parts, and advantages and disadvantages. Would look at each of them into detail and understand the structure of the questions and what you are supposed to do. So the first one we are tackling is opinion questions. The opinion questions usually require you to state your perspective, your personal perspective on the question that has been given to you. You are more or less going to explore what you think as the writer of the essay. There are 2 types. There's one that is open-ended, and there's one that requires you to take a position. These open-ended questions usually require you to really tell the examiner or the reader what you think about the subject that you have, and it doesn't restrict you as to what you should write. That is why it's known as open-ended. So for example, the question that we have, the dot over there, that you can see indicates that I have omitted the statement part of the question, like we saw in the previous lessons when we looked at the structure of the question. So this question is asking you, what in your opinion should be the main function of a university? This question demands that you explore what you think the main function of a university is. Then the second type of opinion questions. For this particular one, the question will be framed to compel you to take a particular stance. So for example, it would ask you, to what extent do you think laws are needed to make people recycle more of their waste? To what extent do you think laws are needed to make people recycle more of their waste? This is an opinion question, all right, but you are forced to take a position. So for this particular example, you have to state the extent to which you think laws are needed. Do you think we need laws to a very large extent, or we need laws totally to help people recycle more of their waste? These are the 2 types of opinion questions that you encounter in IELTS. The second categorization is discussion questions. And for this particular one, you would always be given 2 views for you to analyze. And when you're analyzing these views, you are examining the rationale or the merits of those 2 views that you have, or of those 2 viewpoints that you have in the question. The second part of the question wants you to give your opinion, so you need to highlight your perspective. And ideally, it should be one of them. It means that you're going to incline or lean towards one of the view as you write the essay, though you are analyzing the merits of both views that you have. The third, problem and solution questions. And just like the name suggests, you'll be looking at reasons or causes of a problem, and you'll be making recommendations as to how to solve the particular problem. Then we have 2-part questions, and this would require that you look at 2 sides of the question. For example, the first part would ask you, in what ways has technology affected the types of relationships people make nowadays? And then the second part would ask you, has this become positive or negative? Or um, do you consider the ways positive or negative? You have to look at these two parts of the question. And sometimes you may be required to take a position in a question such as to what extent do you agree or disagree? It may come as part of a two-part question. The essence of these questions is that you have to look at two different angles of the question that you have. Then we have advantages and disadvantages, which is the last of the five types of questions we have for writing tax 2. And these also come in two forms, either a direct, what are the advantages and disadvantages, or for you to lean towards a particular tangent. So do you think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And the essay that you're going to write will depend largely on what your position is. If you think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, then of course your essay will be structured that way. If the reverse is the case, then your advantages would be more, your disadvantages will be more than the advantages. So these are the 5 types of questions. Have fun preparing for your test, and I'll see you in the next lessons.